Okay, good afternoon everybody and welcome to this media conference from St George's Park for Gareth to reveal his squad selection for the forthcoming fixtures against Switzerland, which will be an Alzheimer's Society International, and the Côte d'Ivoire. We'll shortly get underway with questions from Rob Dorset from Sky Sports News, after which we'll open up to those joining us on Zoom. So Rob, when you're ready.
Gareth, good to see you. I've got to ask you about Marc Guéhi first. It's a really big day for him. The under-21s have two competitive qualifiers, so a big decision from you to take their captain and bring him into the senior squad for two friendlies. So what's you thinking?
Well, we're preparing for a World Cup, so we're always supportive of what the under-21s are doing, but the priority has to be the first team, always. With Mark, he's had a really consistent season. Been very impressed with on and off the ball. In the biggest games, he's been very calm. We know a lot about him through our development teams as well. He's Junior World Cup winner. So there are some centre halves that are pushing, and we're very close. But we've added Mark and Ben White this time, and we think it's a good opportunity to see two slightly younger players and see how they cope with being with us.
That would suggest that you see Marc Guéhi potentially, depending on how he develops over the rest of this season, in your squad for the World Cup potentially.
Well, we're a long way from that.
But if you didn't think it was possible, you wouldn't have called him up now, is what you say?
No, absolutely. I think anybody that's in and around the squad now, of course, is in contention for that. But that doesn't mean that players that aren't in this squad can't also be in contention for that. So this is a good opportunity for us to work more closely with Mark and for him to get a feel of life with the seniors.
I've got to ask you about Marcus Rashford and Jadon Sancho, who aren't in your list. If we can deal with them each in turn, because I think Jadon Sancho's omission will surprise people the most. It feels as though he's been in pretty good form for Manchester United recently. I think 2 goals and 3 assists in his last 5 or 6 Premier League games. So Jadon Sancho, why not? Because
with the other attacking players in the squad are slightly ahead of him at the moment in our feeling. You can see the names there: Phil Foden, Raheem Sterling, Bukayo Saka, Emil Smith-Rowe. If you look at the seasons they've had, Jack Grealish, Jadon, without a doubt, over the last few weeks, his performances have improved with Manchester United, but it's an area of the field where we've got really big competition for places, and at the moment we've got those guys slightly ahead.
Marcus Rashford, has he got to do a lot to prove to you over the next 8 months if he's going to make that World Cup squad?
Well, he's in the same position as everybody else. You know, they've all, whether they're in the squad or they're not in the squad, they've all got to play well over the next period of towards the end of this season, and in particular the beginning of next season. So it's a difficult time for him. He's clearly not at his best, but there's plenty of time. We know a lot about Marcus anyway. We know what he can bring to us, and hopefully he can rediscover that form that we know he's capable of.
But, no Kyle Walker. That surprised us a little bit, and you've included Reece James as one of your right-back options. So have you been given assurances that Reece is fit and going to be available for some of these games, and why not Kyle?
Yeah, well, with Kyle, I had a long chat with him. We felt this is an opportunity to look at the 2 younger fullbacks. We know all there is to know about Kyle. He'll be back with us for the games in June. We're very happy with what he's done. He's a very important part of the progress we've made as a team, and you can see in the biggest matches with Manchester City this year, he's still been such a key player for them. So, but these young fullbacks are exciting. We need to give them their opportunities as well. There is a little bit of a doubt over a couple, so you know we've got big games still to get through across the weekend. This squad could change a little bit, but as we stand, we thought it was a good opportunity for Trent and for Reece.
Gareth, I want to ask you about Qatar. Look, you've been asked repeatedly about it for understandable reasons. It's a really important issue, but you've said that it's going to be this camp where you address it and try and educate yourself and the staff and the players before you come up with some sort of unified response. Can you give us a bit more of an idea of how that's going to work? Are you going to have people talk to you and the players, give presentations? What sort of thing are you planning?
Well, we've certainly within the FA we've done a lot of research and that's going to be ongoing because, of course, the world is changing all the time, and situations in every country are changing all the time. So we think it's important to prepare the players in the best possible way, their full understanding of what's going on. From a personal position, there are clearly human rights issues that are of concern. A lot of those issues, I don't think you should be sitting waiting for a statement that's going to cover everything. I think it's too complex for one statement to cover all the issues. The basis of it would be that I don't think we'll be talking to the players about anything that isn't fundamentally what we stand for anyway. We want a game that's inclusive. It's not a good situation that we've got certain parts of our fan base who might feel uncomfortable travelling to the World Cup. There have obviously been issues with the buildings of the stadium. We can't affect that now. There are ongoing concerns about workers' rights. So I think it's important that we give the players that background, that understanding, because when we talk about human rights, it's a very broad subject. And of course, when I was being asked those questions before Christmas, it was hard to get a real full understanding of exactly what are these issues. So I'm clearer now. I feel I can articulate that better to the players. We might get some other people within the FA to help with that, but we'll see the best way of approaching that next week.
Thank you. And look, last one from me. Mark Gay, his call-up is a case in point of just how important Chelsea and Chelsea's academy has been to England at all levels. The women's game, the men's game, the junior game as well. That Chelsea academy has been a very fruitful source of real talent for you for a long time now. With what's happening at Chelsea, how much does that worry you?
Well, I don't know what the implications of what's going on will be for the academy, but to talk about the academy, it has been a brilliantly run operation. Neil Bath, Jim Fraser there have, without doubt, not only the way that they've educated the players, the opportunities, the way they've seen them through their loan spells. So, Conor Gallagher is another one in this squad. They've done an exceptional job. They've had success at youth level, and they're now starting to see a group of players come into their own first team, which has been really important for them. So, I couldn't speak highly enough of. We've got a number of good academies, but they are right up there without a doubt.
Does it worry you with what's happening at Chelsea that might be damaged for a source for England going forward?
I've no idea what the implications will be of the sanctions that are in place in terms of how that might affect the academy, really.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. We'll now throw it open to the floor to those on Zoom. So if you do have a question, please raise your virtual hand and we'll try to come to you. And we'll start with Alex Howell from BBC Sport.
Hi, Gareth. Some people would say that Harry Maguire is going through a difficult time at the moment. So do you think it's important for you to show faith in him at this time?
Well, I don't think it ever crossed our mind not to select Harry Maguire for this squad. He's been a key part of the starting 11 that got us to a World Cup semi-final and a European Championship final. So I know the club are going through a difficult period, but you've got to look at who are our best players and the core of the team, and he's in that group. With no doubt in my mind that he's one of our best centre-backs, and form in that sense is temporary. There's also, in our forward areas, there's perhaps a lot more competition for some of those wide places. So, I will always be accused of double standards on picking on form, but there are nuances to that in that we're not picking the 100 metres finalists here, where the fastest time wins, and it's all very clear. There's a more difficult path on selecting a football team and selecting a squad. But Harry is now over 40 caps, consistently strong performer for us, was through the autumn period as well. Hopefully he can continue that vein of form with us that he's had for such a long period of time.
Do these camps get more important as they go on, as there's only 3 before the World Cup? Is it harder for new players to come in?
Well, we will always have an open eye to players that are playing well and players that could force their way into a squad. That's happened always leading into major tournaments before we were in charge, and now Obviously, what you don't have, the closer it gets, is the chance to play and gain experience in really big matches. But realistically, you're not going to want to put 7 or 8 new players into a squad and expect them to win a World Cup. So you are looking at your more experienced players as being the core of that. And maybe, some younger ones that have already got experiences with us can form part of that team. And maybe 1 or 2 who haven't had a cap yet can still break their way in. But there's a reality around what's required to win and the sorts of big matches you need to be involved in to be able to excel in those environments.
And finally, using Chelsea as an example, are you concerned that players could get distracted with what's going on off the field at their clubs?
I think the life of a footballer, inevitably, there are always possible distractions at any club at any given time. So your role is to focus on what you can control, and that's the way that you train, the way that you prepare, and everything else is outside your control. You can't affect. You've got to just play as well as you can and do the right things to prepare yourself for that.
Thanks, Alex. Next we'll go to Carrie Brown from BeanymanSports.
Hello, Gareth. I'd like to ask you about Marcus Rashford and what he's going through. He's put out on social media apologising for turning around to react to fans criticising him for not talking to them in a mixed zone, talking to them outside the ground and criticising his performance. Ian Wright's leapt to his defence, saying, well, you don't really expect that from your own fans, and it's quite right to back yourself. It's a hard thing in a difficult moment when you're being called out by your own fans, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think when a team is not doing as well as the fans would like, there is always a negative reaction. So we have experienced that. I've experienced that. I can't comment too much on the individual incident because I've only seen one angle of footage and not really aware of everything that was said one way or another. So. But in terms of any team is going to want their fans with them and being supportive of them to try and get the best out of the players. It rarely works if it's not that way for a team to be able to improve their performances.
And can I ask you about Aaron Ramsdale doing so well? Many Arsenal fans are clamouring for him to be named the number 1. But like Harry Maguire, Jordan Pickford, such a standout performer for England, just magnificent in the Euros. How difficult a decision for that is that for you? And is that almost the ideal scenario that they're pushing each other so close?
Well, we do want competition for places. There's no doubt about that. I think that's healthy for everybody. Aaron is having a good season with Arsenal. The interesting part is going to be, no goalkeeper or defender is going to come through a season faultlessly, and how do you deal with those little setbacks along the way? But it's good for us to have competition. We'll play more than one goalkeeper across this camp. That was always our plan anyway. And Nick Pope back in has been performing well with Burnley as well. So that is a good contest to have. That drives the performance of every individual.
And regarding the situation with Chelsea, there are a lot of players that have been at that club from 7, 9 years old. The big thing they've had to do is get into the first team. Now they don't know where that first team will be, what prospects they are. Have they been calling on you? And what will you do to talk to them this week? Because they have been thrown into a world that even we cannot quite comprehend yet.
Well, they haven't called me. Look, what's happening at Chelsea isn't my business really, but what I would say is that football clubs will go on. Football clubs generally, unless there's gross mismanagement, survive, and players come and players go, and managers come and managers go, and the fans are the ones that keep the consistency of a football club. So, I think players are pretty adaptable. They're used to change. They're used to changes of managers. They're certainly used to changes of managers at that club. I think Thomas has dealt with it really, really well, I have to say. And I think the players have shown with their performances on the pitch that they're continuing to win matches, so their focus seems to be good.
We talk about leading positive change. Your players will sit down and talk about the situation and the human rights concerns in Qatar and addressing diversity and inclusion. But we have to look to our country too. You often say that. Do you hope that the fit and proper tests do change so we stop finding ourselves in these scenarios where we're questioning who is running our football game?
Yeah, I mean, that's a matter for the Premier League, really, and for the government. I don't really know what those tests entail. And, I think it would be too easy to say we shouldn't have one nationality or other moving forward, because, some of the clubs that have found themselves in real trouble have had British owners. So there's a debate beyond fit and proper as to what are good owners and what aren't, and what the perceptions of that would be. So I think all of these things, there's a lot of reflection for all of us on what's going on in the world at the moment and what it means for various industries and various businesses, and football is a big part of that.
And back to football. Jarrod Bowen got injured ahead of this camp. Would he have been included in it? And James Ward-Prowse didn't make it to your Euro squad, but is performing so well right now.
Yeah, well, Prowse was in the squads in the autumn and has had a good season with Southampton. Jarrod, we never got to that point of the final meeting where we had to make a decision, because we already knew earlier this week that he was going to be out injured. So, but he's certainly done everything he can on the pitch to put himself in the frame.
Thank you, Gary. We've got 3 more to finish this section of today's media activity. Oh, that's down to 2 now. So we'll start that with Chris Bowden from the Burnley Express.
Afternoon, Gareth. You okay?
Hi there.
Yeah, you mentioned Nick Pope a couple of minutes ago. Just wanted to ask, really, that I think we saw you at Turf Moor for the Tottenham game recently. Do you think he's returned to that sort of top level again?
Yeah. I think we were very pleased with what Sam Johnson did through the summer, and his profile of being able to use the ball with his feet is important. But I think that when you're playing in the Championship, you've got to be playing at the very top with minimal errors to be able to keep out a goalkeeper who's playing well in the Premier League. And Nick was, I think, slightly under par right at the beginning of the season. I think his performances from then on have been good and strong. We know what he's about. So he's a very good goalkeeper, and I know Sean obviously has a view on all of that, but it's great to have him back in the squad.
You say, you've competition not just for the number 1 shirt, but just for every slot in the squad in terms of goalkeepers. 4, 5, 6 maybe.
Yeah, I think that's what you'd hope. That's what you want. There are areas for all of them to improve, and the ideal, if we're going to be a really top team, is they've got to be outstanding at keeping the ball out of the net, number 1. But we also want goalkeepers that can use the ball well and progress the game. And under the biggest pressure moments, you need a goalkeeper that can play out from the back well. So, and then how are they going to handle pressure? Because everybody would have a view on Jordan Pickford, but what you can't dispute about Jordan is he's dealt with the pressure of being the England number 1 extremely well, and a lot of goalkeepers over the years haven't been able to handle that, and he's fulfilled that in the biggest tournaments and the biggest moments. So the others have got to still chase him, and I think it's important that we acknowledge that fact.
Thanks, Chris. And we'll finish with Alex Dickin from the Birmingham Mail.
Hi, Gareth. I was hoping to ask about Max Kilman, if possible. He's obviously missed out on the squad. How close was he to getting in there, and what does he have to do to make the next one?
Well, I think he's had a good season with Wolves. There are a lot of good defenders around. Fikayo would be another one who is definitely we've been tracking closely. We do our due diligence. We know the attributes that are needed for the balance of the team, and I'm not going to go into huge coaching conversations here, because that wouldn't be appropriate. You can make comments about what's needed, and then that can be a perceived criticism of a player. I got caught doing that once before, so I'm not going to do that again. But he's very much on our radar. He's one of a number we tracked closely. I think Mark Gui, his consistency and the way he's played for over a long period with Crystal Palace, calm with the ball, aggressive without it, quick, mobile. Ben White has that mobility and speed as well. He's playing in a pressurised environment, so it's going to be good for us to see those two a bit more closely. But the door is always open.
Thank you, Alex.
And secondly, on Jacob Ramsey, who is having a very good season with Villa and also the 21s. Is he a player on your radar going into World Cup year? Yeah,
absolutely. I think Jacob's doing really well. I think at this moment in time, Conor Gallagher slightly ahead. They're both pushing. Jude has been in our squad for a while, but those two are two young players that are really pushing Jude. There's no doubt about that, and pushing some of the older players as well in that group. So, yeah, that's an area where Curtis Jones is also, emerging at Liverpool, and there are some good sort of attacking midfield players that are good at pressing the opposition and look like they can take goals as well.
Okay, thank you, Alex. We'll conclude this section of today's media activity there. Thanks for joining us.